Changing landscapes. Owen was too excited to sleep. The next day he was going to his grandparents' farm. It was his favorite place to go, and he loved spending time with Grammy and Grampy. It seemed that just as Owen had fallen asleep, his mom was waking him up for the 3-hour trip from the city to the farm. Although tired, Owen jumped out of bed ready to go. Owen looked out of the window as his mother drove past buildings that looked like they touched the sky. Mom, why does Grammy and Grandpa's area look so different from the city? Well, these tall buildings weren't always here. At one point long ago, this city looked just like Grammy and Grampy's area. There were hills and valleys and lakes. A few farms and ranches were spread out across the land. But then more and more people moved here. More businesses opened up, and then people started to tear down smaller buildings and build large skyscrapers instead, Mom replied. As they left the center of the city, there were a number of roads that went above each other and below each other. Were these roads always here? Owen asked. Mom shook her head. No. Once there were just dirt roads like the road by Grammy's. Then, as businesses grew and more people built houses, the cities began turning the dirt roads into paved roads. They leveled the ground and put a thick black surface called asphalt on the roads to make them smoother. This also helped to make more jobs for people in the cities. Many people worked on building the roads and constructing buildings for new businesses. The big road that led to his grandparents' home went underneath all the other roads. It took them half an hour to get away from the buildings and busy streets and reach grassy pastures and fields planted with crops. They turned into Owen's favorite road, which went up and down steep hills. It was like riding on a roller coaster. His mother always said she felt seasick on this road. Owen loved the feeling in his stomach when the car drove down the hill. As they were nearing the bottom of a very steep hill, Mom started to slow down. "Oh, Mom, why are you stopping?" Owen asked. "Workers are repairing the road. It won't take too long." As they waited in the car, Owen watched in fascination as workers in orange vests drove big machines. The back of a dump truck opened and out poured something steaming and black. Then a worker drove a machine that looked like it had a huge rolling pin on it. It flattened the black goo into a nice, smooth road. Finally, another worker waved an orange flag, and Owen and his mom were able to drive on. They drove past fields and trees and a few farmhouses. Some fields had dark black soil and were plowed with lines as far as the eye could see. Other fields had row after row of green plants growing in the dirt. After what seemed like forever, Owen and his mom drove into a valley and along a tree-lined driveway to his grandparents' house. Owen jumped from the car and ran into his grandmother's arms. She squeezed him until he squealed and wiggled away. Then he was snatched and hugged by his grandfather. "Let him go," laughed Grammy. "I'm going to take him to the orchard to show him all the apples." "While you do that, I'll finish making the pie so we can have it for dessert," Grampy said. "Yum," Owen said. "I can't wait for pie." Owen and Grammy walked down a dirt path toward the orchard. As they walked, Grammy pointed to the riverbank. "See those raccoon tracks in the sand?" she asked. Grammy told Owen how the raccoons came down to the river every night to catch food for their dinner. "That's so cool," Owen exclaimed. They walked farther, and Grammy pointed out the flowers that grew wild all along the path. There were even some blackberry bushes bursting with ripe fruit. They stopped to pick and nibble on the sweet treats. "Watch out for those thorns," Grammy warned. "Did you plant these bushes, Grammy?" "No, they grew from seeds that were blown by the wind, landed on the ground, and were buried. Then it rained, and the seeds were watered. Now we have more blackberry bushes than we know what to do with." Grammy took Owen up past a field that looked like it had just been plowed. "We're going to plant some new apple trees here and grow more sweet, crisp apples," said Grammy. Owen said he couldn't wait to try them. You will have to be patient, said Grammy. Did you know that just 150 years ago there weren't any trees here? There also weren't any farmhouses. But then some settlers came along with their wagons and planted the trees that they brought with them. Grampy and I did the same thing, only we didn't come in a covered wagon. We came in a truck. Grammy laughed. They continued to walk past the orchard and up a rocky hill on the east side of the farm. They climbed and climbed. They walked past fields of stones and between large boulders until they reached their favorite spot, which overlooked the whole farm. Both of them were huffing and puffing like the big bad wolf. They looked down and it seemed like they could see the whole world. As far as they could see, fields had been cleared and planted by farmers. There were grassy pastures filled with sheep and cows. There were also houses here and there, and a maze of roads. Each road connected a farmhouse to another road that led into a town. Then there were roads that joined one town to another. Owen and his grandmother sat together quietly looking out at the big, wide valley. It's hard to imagine that at one time there weren't any houses or any roads. Now there are families and farms everywhere, Owen said with awe. I am so glad that you and Grampy came here with your truck. I'm hungry for some apple pie, Grammy said. How about you? Let's go, Owen exclaimed. Together they walked down the tall rocky hill, past the apple orchard, and along the river where the water gurgled and raccoons made tracks in the sand. Finally, they found themselves at a kitchen table with the scent of apples and cinnamon filling the air.